Hello, everyone. It's 6:02. I'm just going to hold on for 2 more minutes, and then we will start. Just waiting for a few more people to join to see if we can get quorum here. My apologies for the delay. Just hold on for 2 more minutes. Okay. At least for Bex, I am seeing that we don't have quorum yet. I'm going to start the meeting nonetheless. If we do not have quorum as we go forward, or if we lose it, any vote that we have will be ratified by the executive committee. So I will start now because we are at 6:03 and this is a special meeting of both Bex and the Land Use Committee.
Renee, there are a few members in as attendees. You might want to make them that, or that may help your quorum.
Let me see.
Well, I'm not sure if they're on this committee.
I don't see anybody in the attendees, Nick, that are on the committee. And I would ask if anybody is on the committee that they turn on their video if they can and join as a panelist. Okay. As I said, I will start, and if we don't have quorum moving forward, we will ratify it at the executive committee, and I will give you the dates of that executive committee. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight, this special meeting, particularly during the holiday season. I know everyone's really busy, so your attendance is really appreciated. I just want to explain why we're here and why we're having a special meeting, Bex, with the Land Use Committee, and why James Metham and Kirk Kavanaugh are here from the Flatiron Bid, again, to talk about the Flatiron Bid extension. What we're doing is we're here to vote on the application for the extension of the Flatiron Bid expansion, which is a process that follows the ULURP review procedure. It doesn't have any zoning or land use implications, but it follows that process. So just to go over the process of how one extends a bid, the bid first had to get approval of the idea, define the boundaries, speak with the stakeholders, conduct needs assessments, determine the services to provide, the budget, figure it out an assessment formula, draft the summary of the district, and get final approval by the city's small business service agency. They then reach out, and James will detail this, to all the stakeholders, and Flatiron Bid has done that in a number of ways to assess and gather public support for the expansion. So that piece is done. And we were part of that process back in February and March, the BEX committee. And now the Flatiron Bid has filed the formal plans with the Department of City Planning, DCP, for the bid expansion. And DCP have referred this out for community board review, like the ULURP process. So that's where we are. We at CB5 have 30 days to review the Flatiron amended district plan. I believe everybody has a copy of that. So that is this application here. Our input is due by January 4th, which is why we're having this special meeting now, why the timing is what it is. Our commentary and our vote will go to DCP, who then has 60 days to issue a report on the application. And that report then goes to the City Council, and the City Council is the one who'll make the final decision regarding the Flatiron Bid expansion. Just briefly, you're going to wonder why we didn't do this. James was with us at BEX, and we also heard this back in February. In February, we were talking, that was the stakeholder period where they were getting the support from stakeholders. We are at a different stage at this point. This also had a little bit of a change. So there's a new 8-2 assessment rate, which is a change from when we offered our support of the Flatiron Bid expansion the last time. So I've shared the district plan with you. I am going to turn it over to Layla now, who's going to speak on the land use piece of this.
Thank you very much, Renee. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leila Logesico. I'm the chair of the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee of Community Board 5. So as Renee explained, this is an application that basically follows the ULURP review process. So this is why it is a joint meeting of the BECS and the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee meetings of CB5. But what's interesting is that there is really no direct land use or zoning component to the application. It is just that, you know, when the local law was voted on to permit bids in New York, it was decided that ULURP was the proper review process to actually evaluate the bid creation and bid expansion. It is one of those, you know, sort of like non-ULURP type of applications. So it follows the steps and the process. But we certainly appreciate that, you know, the land use and zoning component is not really what is in front of us. Nonetheless, once we issue our recommendation, we have 30 days to do that, it will go to the City Planning Commission, and the commissioners will have an opportunity to review, and they will issue a report. And this report will be forwarded to the City Council, and then the City Council would take a vote. What's interesting is that ULURP is very codified, so there are, you know, specific amounts of time for each entity, whether it's the community board, the board president, and the City Planning Commission to actually weigh in and comment. On this one, it's almost the same, with the major difference that the City Council does not have a deadline to weigh in on the application. You know, this is for the land use portion of things. I also want to disclose at the very beginning of this meeting that although I am sitting here and I presented myself as the chair of the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee, I want everybody to know that I am present but not entitled tonight because the building where I reside is actually within the expansion boundaries. So I will be addressing any technical questions on land use, but I will not be chairing the meeting. That honor will fall on Renee's shoulders entirely. I will, as I said, you know, I will provide any technical, you know, comments and you know, like if there are any technical questions that need to be addressed on the land use portion, I will do that, but I will certainly shy away from, you know, guiding the conversation in any way, shape, or form. And any comments and questions that I make will be as a member of this committee, being present but not entitled to vote. So with all of that being said, Renee, I'm turning it back to you.
Thank you, Leila. On the process piece, I would ask people to use the raise hand function if they have any questions. I just want to see if we have any questions from anyone here on the process. I'm seeing no hands raised. Seeing none, I'm going to ask any of the attendees if they have any questions on the process. And seeing none there, I'm going to turn the meeting over to James and Kurt to go through their presentation on the expansion. Welcome to James and Kurt. Hi.
Thanks, Renee. Thank you, Leila. Very happy to be here this evening. I know it's a busy time of the year, but want to make sure everyone's fully up to date on what we proposed as a steering committee for the expansion of the Flatiron 23rd Street Partnership. Again, I'm joined this evening by my colleague, Kurt Kavanaugh, who's our Director of Streetscape and Planning. And I'm James Metham, I'm Executive Director of the Flatiron 23rd Street Partnership. So in a moment, if you don't mind, I'm going to share a presentation. I know our friends in the BECS committee have gone through this as recently as a few weeks ago. But I figured just kind of get everyone up to speed too on who we are and what we've been working on for the past few years to get us to this moment that we're very excited about in terms of proposing our expansion of our service area in the Nomad and 6th Avenue and 20th Street corridor. Let me pull this up right now, and I'm going to pull this up and present from it. I might have trouble seeing people's faces and hands, so just please stop me at any point if you have a direct question, or we can hold it until after the presentation. It's up to you. Oh, and one other thing, Luke or Marisa, it might make sense to, if you can, I think Lamel Lindsay from SBS is in the attendees list. It might make sense to pull him up to panelist if you don't mind, if the committees are okay with that. He's the representative from the Department of Small Business Services who oversees this for us.
Just did.
Thank you. Okay. Can everyone see that? Okay. I'm gonna make this slideshow. Okay. So yeah, just we'll give you the lay of the land of who we are, some facts on the expansion, some of the needs of services that we've explored with the community over the past number of years in terms of pushing to move on this expansion of our services. I look at the assessment budget and formulas that are required to underwrite the services and programs, as well as the outreach, engagement, and support that we've been working on over the past year, both pre and post COVID outbreak. So just to familiarize everyone, we are one of the city's 76 business improvement districts. We've been around, we were formed in 2006. And again, we represent property owners, businesses, residents, and other stakeholders in the greater Flatiron neighborhood. We're a nonprofit. We focus on community improvements and economic development, doing what we can to make sure that the Flatiron and Nomad neighborhoods are as vital and exciting and vibrant as possible. So yeah, we've been an institution here in the neighborhood for nearly 15 years, and we're proud of the work that we do in the neighborhood. Currently, we're kind of a blob around Madison Square Park. These are the boundaries that were ultimately approved back in 2005, 2006 through the legislative process, roughly from about 21st Street on the south, bits and pieces of 6th Avenue up to 23rd Street. And then we taper in, as you can see, towards Broadway up until about 28th Street. And then we taper out on the east side from Park Avenue south over to Lexington to include the Baruch College campus. And these, this neighborhood, in our relationships with the institutions here, whether it's Madison Square Park Conservancy, Baruch College, the businesses, property owners and residents, has been a constant, and we think we've done a lot to make a big difference in terms of both the quality of life, the look and feel, and the economic vibrancy of the neighborhood over the past decade plus. So, just a few items that many of you who have been in this community for quite some time, pre and post bid, probably have witnessed and noticed over time. Before the bid, one, there wasn't a Flatiron Plaza, the North and South Plaza. That's something that we take great pride and joy in managing, activating, cultivating, and making it a community living room for the neighborhood. And then, just like I've said all the time, it's just genuine tender love and care throughout the neighborhood, whether it's the Park Avenue medians or just the regular daily upkeep of trash collection, public safety, beautification, and just activating public spaces in a way that people feel good about lingering in. So just moving into the proposal, this is, it's a pretty ambitious proposal, and we've been working on it for quite some time. I've been with the bid for just about 2 years, just under 2 years, but this is something that's been in the works for nearly 3 to 4 years in terms of thinking about. And some have said even going back to its formation as the map had changed. But this is nearly doubling the size of the current business improvement district. It's really concentrated on kind of an upward thrust along 6th Avenue as a gateway to Midtown, into Penn Plaza and Herald Square. It includes the greater swath of Nomad, that has obviously changed dramatically over the past decade. And it also includes a southern corridor, 20th Street, given the contextual look and feel and character of that corridor, similar to that of 21st and 22nd. So this is 100+ block faces that's in the blue shaded area. There's some 1,300+ properties. That includes individual residential condo units, many tenants, commercial tenants, both ground floor and of course upper floor, hospitality and hotels. 3,000+ residential units, a workforce of 40,000. Of course, we're hoping we return to that number as we recover over the coming year. And the way we underwrite our assessment formula, we'll talk about a little bit more shortly, is using square footage of buildings, of properties, to determine how we apply an assessment rate. So that's roughly the map that we took a while to settle on it. That 6th Avenue, 31st Street, there was a lot of debate as to whether or not we, stay at 6th Avenue. Do we go to 7th Avenue? Do we include 6th Avenue at all? 31st Street, we've had iterations of this over the past few years, starting at 29th, ending at 29th Street. We got a lot of good feedback from property owners and businesses further north that they'd like to be included. So we've tried to be as inclusive as possible, while also factoring in, a matter of us being able to provide the necessary services that we'll talk about shortly. So yeah, again, back to that tender love and care aspect. Over the past two years, at least since I've been here, and Kurt's been with the partnership for 3 years, we've been logging and inventorying issues both in and around the bid, and just certain things that the partnership pays very close attention to in terms of the services that we deliver on a daily basis. Certainly noticeable on our periphery, right outside the bid or in between our bid and the 34th Street partnership just north of us, or the Union Square partnership south of us along 14th to 17th Street. So these are items that we work on every day, whether it's beautification, graffiti removal, derelict bike maintenance and management, those things that are just need a watchful eye on in terms of making sure that we can make sure this is a vibrant place for people to live, work, and play in. So here's just a few of those that are particularly along 6th Avenue and Nomad. And then recent conditions. I mean, things obviously for everyone turned on a dime and on its head come March. We've certainly noticed that we've had an uptick in street homelessness that we've been working closely with our city partners on addressing in the neighborhood, welcoming them as our neighbors, but also making sure that we're also managing certain street conditions as they arise as well. So we've been working there with our partners. We obviously had some of the impacts of the social unrest come through 5th Avenue, 6th Avenue, the adverse impacts of that, 6th Avenue, 5th Avenue, Broadway during the summer. Our teams were there to help our property owners and businesses pick up the pieces those tough nights. Whether or not, we worked with artists to make sure that when there were boards being put up, that we could try to at least add some light to them, some levity to them for hope. And then just, certain streets here and there, we've certainly noticed that need some attention as there've been less people in the district. And then, on the bright side, we've been really, we've worked very closely with the business community in both on 20th Street and on Broadway and 29th Street to help maintain and introduce open streets and outdoor dining. They've been really successful. We think they've done their best and worked with us to try to be good neighbors during this. Obviously, some issues here and there that we've worked to mitigate. But that was something that, as a management partner in close relationship with the Department of Transportation, we lent ourselves to. So very difficult times. Everyone's struggling, especially our businesses. But some really good things also coming out of this that we're hoping to help advance in the years to come. So again, as we went through this over the past few years, we've done a number of needs assessments and outreach to kind of gauge what were the core needs of the district, of the expansion area. Many of those came back being similar to what the services that we've been providing and working day in and day out to provide to the current bid boundaries, whether it's around cleanliness, public safety ambassadors, homeless outreach and service provisions, a touch of streetscape improvements and horticulture and urban design enhancements around safety and transit access. And then particularly lately, business support, district-wide marketing to try to draw as many eyeballs and dollars to our ground floor businesses and regulate and navigate regulatory burdens. Acting again as a liaison and an advocate to city agencies, similar to the community board, and of course, in this case, with a lens towards the business vitality in the district. And again, so what we are, we serve as a community resource for our coworkers, our businesses, residents, and institutions. And we're a clearinghouse for local economic trends and information. Retail recruitment and attraction is going to become much more important in the days ahead, unfortunately, we fear. But that's something that a bid like ourselves will be diving into. Promoting the neighborhood as a vibrant place to live, work, and play, access to government, emergency management and relief efforts. That's been a big part of the past 9+ months. It was a big part of our role of the steam pipe explosion in 2018. And again, prioritizing local business needs during economic recovery. So what we've proposed to the expansion area, again, this is building on these things. District-wide horticultural program that starts with, our hanging baskets and installing those across the district, making sure that tree beds and tree guards are installed throughout the district, and that our horticultural contractor is doing seasonal plantings there, making sure the Park Avenue medians are extended in terms of their maintenance and seasonal plantings throughout the year. Currently, we stop at just about 28th Street. We'd go up to nearly 32nd Street in this case. Our trash receptacles that are out there too, making sure those are maintained and installed. And then just streetscape and design and safety measures. There's been a lot of issues, particularly along the 6th Avenue corridor over the past year. And we think this is an important time to address those and bring those forth for consideration. And again, open streets, open dining, Broadway vision. There's a lot of things that the expansion of the bid will enable us to take on in earnest. We're excited about doing that public realm work and visioning with the community. Our sanitation, safety, and social services, the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes, the foundation, however you want to call it. Our clean streets, our cleaning crews are out there at minimum 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day, extended hours during peak months. They've been true heroes this past 9 months, out working in the community, helping to keep it clean and safe. Throughout this, they're getting ready as we speak for the snowstorm that's coming in a day. So they'll be out there. They're the eyes and ears and the crew that really makes a huge difference in our neighborhood. And you see them, and if you do see them, even regardless of the expansion, please give them a nod and a vote of support. They've been terrific. And our public safety officers and ambassadors are out there. They, like I said, we treat them, they address quality of life issues. They're ambassadors for the neighborhood. They provide a friendly face, both for visitors, co-workers, residents alike. And they'll be in the expansion area as well from, somewhere in that 9 to 7 range as well. And then also our homeless outreach teams. We contract with a terrific non-profit called Urban Pathways. They work across the city. They're out working, building relationships with individuals without shelter, our homeless neighbors, panhandlers, street homeless every day during the week, typically from 7 in the morning through the early afternoon. And trying to build that trust and help people access services if they choose to access them through safe haven shelters and so on. And of course, that's also working closely with the Department of Homeless Social Services and Department of Homeless Services to provide that support. And then in terms of marketing and program business support, I touched on this a little bit, but we spend a lot of time telling folks what we're up to, making sure that people feel that Flatiron Nomad, the greater neighborhood, is a place that they want to shop in, work in, and take a stroll through. So that's whether that's our weekly newsletter, email blasts, getting information out. That's been more important than ever over the past 9 months as a kind of a resource for particularly our business community on relief efforts and important timely information that seems to be swirling every moment. In good times, programming events are critical in terms of activating our public spaces in a responsible manner that's community oriented. We do that. We hold community events. District branding, this is something that we'll be looking closely at, hopefully as we move forward with the expansion, as we become a greater community, a larger community, beyond just Flatiron and 23rd Street. And again, business support, working closely with the Department of Small Business Services, our state, federal, and local partners here on relief efforts and advocating for much needed support now more than ever. So those are major cogs of the bid. Now, in terms of the nuts and bolts of how we do those things on a daily basis, bids are underwritten by assessments that are levied on property owners. This is how it's been done since the late 70s, when the first bids were created, and it almost acts kind of like a CAM, a community assessment, kind of like how malls would work, where there'd be a common fee that's paid by each vendor in that case to make sure that there's common area support throughout the district. So we're currently a $3.25 million bid assessment bid. Our budget's right around 3.25 as of 2020, as of this fiscal year. And again, we break that 3.25 million across our key programs: sanitation, public safety, marketing, social services, homeless outreach, public improvements, beautification, admin, general administration, and making sure that we have a reserve in place as well. What we're proposing here with the expansion, nearly doubling in size, we do have some economies of scale, particularly in terms of administration and reserve, is going up to about a $6 million operation. So the expansion area would roughly generate $2.75 million from the property owners in that area, $3.25 million coming from the current bid. And how do we get to that? Because there's different types of properties. So per the bid assessment formula that we use, each benefited property owner's annual contribution is based on, as I mentioned earlier, square footage. And we do that through the following classes: retail, commercial, professional classes is your typical commercial building and space. We generate a formula taking that budget and dividing it through the total amount of assessed commercial square footage. That comes out to about 16 cents a square foot. That's what the bid property owners currently pay. And it's been very important that we felt going into this as a steering committee that we kind of peg that amount, particularly in the initial years, so that no one, current bid paying properties are not assessed anything greater, and new ones are not as well. So it's at 16 cents per square foot. That's the bulk of the assessment. We do have a special class that was created at the onset of the bid for large, very, very large commercial buildings that take up one full block. These are the buildings around Madison Square Park that you're probably familiar with, the New York Life building, where MetLife used to be. There's really two buildings now that fit this class. They are assessed at 80% of that commercial assessment, obviously at a much higher amount of square footage, and that roughly comes out to 13 cents a square foot. The item that's the new proposed piece here is this large mixed-use, A2, large mixed-use buildings over 200,000 square feet. And this is also the item that has been tweaked since we met Renee and Bex. We did discuss this a couple of weeks ago, but this is the one item that has changed since we met in the pre-pandemic in late February. Prior to this, we were just narrowly looking at 6th Avenue buildings. Now we've applied this across the district. And essentially what it is, these are the largest mixed-use properties. These are the residential towers, the rental residential towers across the neighborhood, of which nearly all are located on 6th Avenue from 23rd Street up to 31st Street, both east and west sides of the street. And what we're proposing here is that the commercial portions, pretty much the pedestals of these buildings, especially if you're familiar with the 6th Avenue ones. They're commercial pedestals and then towers above that were permitted by rezoning in the late 90s to make that a C6-4X district. But we're saying, what we're asking to do here is assess the commercial portions of those buildings at the same rate as Class A. So that's that 16 cents a square feet. And then the non-commercial portions, primarily the residential rental spaces above it, would be assessed at a reduced rate of 40% the commercial rate, which is approximately 6.5 cents per square foot. This is important for us just because of the changing nature of the district. There's a lot of unknowns, particularly now going into the world in the post-pandemic. But it's important that we can provide maintain the level of service, particularly the cleanliness around these particular nodes where there's just a higher concentration of 24/7 presence generated by the sheer number of units that are in these buildings. And I'll get into this in a second, but just quickly, the rest of the assessment class: individual residential co-ops and condos. This is being maintained. They will be, they're technically not assessed. It's a $1 per year assessment on co-op buildings, non-commercial portions, and residential condos. That remains the same both in the current district and in the expansion district. Nonprofits and government are exempt per the law that Layla mentioned earlier. Vacant parcels are assessed, are given a break. That's the existing plan of $1 per year as well until they are developed. But parking lots, surface parking lots, are assessed at the full commercial rate of 16 cents. So let me just, there might be questions here and I'm happy to pause here, but so this is the large mixed use buildings class map. These are the A2 properties that are subject to this new assessment class. There are 10 of them in the full district, 8 of them, the first 8 that you see from A to H, those are in the proposed expansion district that lines 6th Avenue. They're all rental towers above 200,000 square feet. Nearly all of them were built pre-2017 in the new Affordable New York program. So most are subject, were part of the 421A program. They are not allowed, the assessment goes to the property owner. They are not allowed to pass that through to the residents, whether it's through 421A and the fact that they're restricted by the rent guidelines laws, or if there are some income restricted buildings as well. This is not intended at all to reach any tenant. It is to the property owners themselves. So that's the first 8, and then there are 2 buildings that are in the current district. One is on the eastern side of the southeastern corner of 23rd and 6th Avenue. That's the Caroline building, and the other is the recently rebranded Anagram Nomad that is between the full lot, a through lot between 28th and 29th Street between 5th Avenue and Madison Avenue. In each of the, we've reached out over both in terms of the first 8 over the course of the past year and a half. We've received letters of support from half of the buildings in support of this. The other half we've talked with, we've made our pitch. They haven't opposed it. They're okay with the idea. They haven't put pen to paper in terms of our support ballots. And then in terms of the existing bid area, the Caroline has provided us with a support letter, and we're still in dialogue now with the Anagram Nomad as well on this. And in each case, we think that the services being provided and offered up are worth the reduced rate. Any questions on that before I move on? We can come back to it as well. Okay, so on the topic of community outreach, engagement, and support, this is a very important thing that that the steering committee seriously took, and that the Department of Small Business Services, who's the kind of the guardian of this effort throughout the city, instills in every expansion and formation initiative. So this included forming a steering committee of businesses, property owners, residents, resident organizations, creating a statement of need for the expansion, doing a needs assessment over the past 2 years, developing a modified district plan that met those needs, holding public meetings, conducting ongoing outreach and documenting support, and then submitting a proposal to the city Department of Small Business Services. And then as the next chapter here is what we're doing tonight is this public review, the formal public review and legislative approval phase of this, which is somewhat of a modified ULURP. So the steering committee has been in place since 2016. We've had organizations, stakeholders come in and out. But as I mentioned before, it's been a suite of property owners, residential buildings and associations, small businesses, big businesses, runs the real gamut here. And they've been at the table helping to steer this throughout the past 4 years, and welcomed me a couple of years ago to help get it to this point. So what that's looked like, as I mentioned, needs assessments. We spent a lot of time, particularly in the first half of 2019, debating what the boundaries would be and the budget would be, working with our elected officials too there. And we came to this set by the summer of 2019, and that's what we then directed our outreach and support gathering focus on. So we've done direct mailings of brochures and our statements of support to thousands of residents and businesses. We've done weekly newsletter e-blasts out, ground floor business canvassing, upper floor tenant letter distributions. We've met and mailed information with various condo and co-op associations. Again, we've really focused on those 6th Avenue rental towers through direct mailings and conversations, local press. We held 2 public information meetings in October of last year and January of this year. Again, we re-engaged things again once we came out of the initial freeze through the pandemic, and we've been really doing what we can to provide various levels of COVID relief and recovery efforts in the expanded area for the businesses. And of course, all of that has helped yield an additional amount of support over the fall. We did take a pause, like most people, over the spring to really focus on the recovery, but we have received support over the past few months of this. Here's just some, you may have come across this, especially if you live in the neighborhood, in the expansion area. Some of our mailings that we've done multiple times over the past year. Some of the public information meetings, both in person and Zoom, in recent months. We did those both in the lower part of the district and in the northern expansion area. And then in terms of what we've been doing, as I mentioned, pandemic business support, that starts with just general advocacy, working with the rest of the BIDs and the chambers of commerce and our economic development partners to advocate for relief at every level that's needed, particularly right now. We're working with the chamber on the New York City Small Business Resource Network. We've provided commercial tenant legal guidance through our friends at the Legal Aid Society, as we represent interests both on the property owner and the business side of this. We've provided direct promotional campaigns from the All-In Flatiron and All-In Nomad to drum up some business for our restaurants and dry good retail over the fall. We've distributed masks to businesses. I think it ended up being somewhere between 50 and 60,000 masks that we distributed on behalf of the city to businesses across the BID, the expansion area and beyond. And then a couple of important giving back efforts, both our current Gifts for the Greater Good drive, where we're fundraising and using BID resources to purchase gifts from local retailers and provide them to individuals and families of need, both at the Harmonious Shelter and through the Hearts of Gold nonprofit in our district. And then back in the spring, we did a Feeding Flatiron First initiative, which again provided meals purchased at local retail restaurants, and we fed our local EMS, fire department, and police precinct for 30 straight days. And then, but looking ahead, I mean, again, I mentioned this before. There's opportunity throughout the tragedy here. I hate to say it like that, but whether it's through the open restaurants and open streets work that we've been working with the businesses and community on, or just a vision for a safer and more accessible public realm for all sorts of, for everyone. We want to make sure that we're helping to provide resources and guidance and support in that. So we're excited about the possibility of Broadway and the Broadway vision that I know that the Department of Transportation, it's kicked off prior to the pandemic and was looking to get back rolling. We met with them recently. And we're also excited about some vision planning that we've done for open streets, and perhaps that we might think about work on over the spring and summer as we get to the warmer seasons. So yeah, that ongoing outreach has been continuous throughout the past few months. Again, 6,000 postcards were mailed as recently as a couple months ago to everyone, saying that this was still up in the air and that we were still looking to move forward with it. We've had a number of conversations with businesses and property owners looking to get their support and help them through this. And yeah, we're excited that we've gotten to a point here over the past 6 months where we can say that we have over 50%, 56% of the total amount of commercial assessed value has registered their support through signed statements in support of this. The residential community has been just outstanding in their desire to see this come to fruition. 36% of the total residential AV has come through. About 21% of the total commercial properties. And as I mentioned, there's between 350 and 400 properties. We're close to 100 there. Residential properties as well have been great. And we've pushed really hard on our commercial tenants where appropriate and feasible. It's like I said, there's nearly 1,000 of them in the district, and we've gone to many extents to try to get them information, talk with as many of them as we can, and we do feel like we have a good number there. We continue to work on that to this day, and in each case, there's just fortunately, I think partially because of the great work and trust that this particular bid and my predecessor and its board have instilled in the community over the past 15 years. It's been just support that we've received. We've had people that have been hesitant to sign. Not everyone believes entirely in the bid concept and understand that entirely. But we haven't received, we've received less than 1% of statements of support that check the no box. So we feel like it's time to move this into the public review process and allow for the hearings and testimonies over the course of the next few months, and we look forward to that. I will stop there. Thank you for letting me go through all that. I know for many of you it's been a couple times, but happy to talk through any questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, James. I think we should turn it over and look for questions from committee members.
I'm going to unshare for the time being. I can pull it up.
And I would ask people to use the raise hand function. I see Clayton.
Thanks so much. I just have a quick question, which is that if this was never meant to reach residents, and if residential buildings in the co-ops and condos have never been assessed, I mean, aside from the nominal dollar, I'm a little unclear about the rationale about why property owners should be assessed on the residential square footage of their mixed use buildings. Could you just address that? Why are they is that square footage being assessed at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's one that we've grappled with from the get-go. And I can be honest and tell you that initially it was one that we weren't entertaining. It really came down to an issue with really bringing 6th Avenue in particular into the fold here. We were getting a lot of calls for servicing it. And just the sheer amount of density and conditions required that we had an ample enough budget to do a good job there without letting that corridor down. So how this initially started was that, yeah, it was a 6th Avenue kind of special assessment on those properties. It was actually at a higher rate. When we met with Renee and Bex in the spring, it was actually at 55% of the residential square footage. But we felt, in terms of sustainability and the ability to treat this corridor, that it is different. I mean, it's interesting that the original bid kind of does taper intentionally away from 6th Avenue, as we've been in existence for the past 15 or so years. It was important that we made sure that these buildings that were adding an extra layer of both pedestrians and service levels that we could to cover that. So that was the genesis. Honestly, that was the genesis. And then over the fall, we had conversations with the city, with Department of Small Business Services, city planning, and it was advised that we take a look and not just have a narrow scope of 6th Avenue, but perhaps consider a district-wide one. And fortunately, it's only 2 additional buildings. That obviously, that's not to say things change in the future, but it's also just a matter of kind of equity in that regard. And why do just 5 blocks and not the whole area? So that's what we've amended the proposal to.
Thank you. Sam Johnson, you have a question.
Yeah, you indicated that 1% of the buildings oppose the proposal. Can you give me some idea of what their major sources of objection to the proposal were?
Yeah, we had a few conversations with those that submitted ballots, saying that they were uninterested in this. We've had a couple of property down on 20th Street that felt that there wasn't, that great of a need for the bid services. There's some spillover benefit on 20th Street, to be honest, just given our map currently, because we do cover, particularly along Broadway, we almost cover the entire block down to 20th Street. So it was a matter of just, is this worth the financial commitment through the assessment? That it was really down to just like, is this really worth it? Do we want those services, the supplemental services provided, versus do we feel like it's already being covered substantially? Again, it's supplemental in nature, right? This is on top of what the city is and should be providing in terms of its sanitation, public safety, beautification here and there. So it's a matter of that we've heard.
Thanks, James. Kim.
Yes. Hello, friends. Thank you so much for this robust overview. This has been extremely helpful. I had a quick question and was hoping you could maybe do a bit of a deeper dive into the alignment and location of the 34th Street partnership, and if your new northern border will abut with that, or if you could just go into a little more detail.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me, do you mind if I pull up the screen again? I'm going to share this again and I'll pull up a map for everyone. Hold on one sec. Sorry, I've got a lot of maps. Okay. Okay, so here's a map of the jigsaw puzzle that are Midtown South bids. You can see us smack in the middle in the light gray. The purple is our expansion area as proposed. The shaded area to the north is the 34th Street partnership bid, running primarily 34th Street and over, but it does dip down, as you can see, at different parts down to 32nd Street. On certain corners, 33rd Street pretty substantially. This was something that we wanted to help fill the gap we decided, like I said, at various various iterations of this, 29th Street, 30th Street was our northern kind of boundary. We did get asked by property owners, businesses, and electeds to consider 31st Street to try to bring it closer. So we did that. We honored that. And then 32nd Street just poses some issues. I mean, it's, it just in terms of character, if you want to go with whatever character's worth, it does have more of a Herald Square, Midtown feel to it. The other bid kind of zigzags in and out of it already. Koreatown, of course, is there too, and have their own particular interests and needs. So we decided to say that 31st Street would be the cutoff. Of course, and again, there is the one spur on 32nd to 33rd on Park Avenue South on the east side. We acknowledge that. That's NYU Langone's there, and we work closely with them, and so we did include that in the proposal. But otherwise, it's, this is not meant to. I hope it doesn't seem. It may seem like it's kind of cherry picked because there's a number of lots that are full block through lots. So the idea here is that we're not intending to service 32nd Street. So if your building line is a through block, we will service 31st Street, north and south sidewalks. But we're not going to be servicing the 32nd Street side between Park Avenue and Broadway. I don't know if that helps to answer it.
Thanks, James. Nick, I see you have your hand up.
James, on that subject, I seem to recall hearing that the 34th Street Partnership had plans of expanding south. If that happens, what gaps would they fill in?
The 34th Street Partnership over the years has definitely talked about it. I think they even had kicked off a formal effort 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago that I think even would have included a portion of this proposed expansion area. I don't know if, as recently as earlier this year, I know they had no immediate intentions to expand, but I mean, we would hope if this could move forward as is, that they would fill the gaps, formally fill and, abut us contiguously. That makes sense. We've kind of left it that way so that if they did that, it wouldn't be, zigzagging in and out. That's why the 31st Street was kind of like that squaring of the northern boundary.
Thanks, James. Layla.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, James, for a very thorough presentation. I have a couple of questions. So I'm going to start with the first one, and Renee, feel free to interrupt me if I'm getting too greedy. My first question is regarding the assessment rates. So currently, I understand what you presented, but can you walk us through the process to actually amend those assessment rates? Yes,
absolutely. Good question. So for any bid to, there's a couple of facets to that. So one, any bid, if they want to increase their assessment, just the sheer budget, right? Let's just say that $6 million amount. If there was a need to increase the assessment for, cost of living, cost of inflation, service increases, special projects, whatever it is, that piece, just to go up $1 from 6 million to 6,000,001, would requires legislation. That requires city council to pass a local law to allow that. So that's one. To the crux of your question, though, in terms of amending the formulas and the rates, the formulas that generate that also requires legislation, and it would require it's technically an amendment to the district plan. So it's similar to what we're doing now. We're kind of going into our Magna Carta of sorts, our document of existence, the district plan, to expand our boundaries and add properties to it, to add that special class that we talked about. And then it triggers this public review and legislative process. A similar thing would be required to make any changes to the formula down the road, regardless if we change the boundaries. It would still require legislation. Yeah.
So currently you have introduced or you're seeking legislation to amend the district plan.
That's correct.
Is that what this ULURP application is, or is there an additional action in front of the city council?
That's what this is. You're absolutely right. That's what this ULURP. The ULURP is for the amending of the district plan to expand the boundaries and amend the formulas that we walk through. That's right.
Okay, so technically, if you were to decide to amend the boundaries again, let's say you want to expand a little further south and include maybe 19th Street, then you would have the opportunity to fold in a amendment to the formula.
That's correct. Oh, and that's exactly right. We could do that there. Or if it, I mean, we have no intentions of doing this at all. I mean, it's taken years to just get to this point, but any amendment to the plan, whether it's the map, the budget, or the formulas, require legislation. It can't just be done. We can't just vote as a board unilaterally to do it. It's got to go through legislation.
Okay, and I think I understood your the breakdown of the different building categories. I'm just a little unclear on mixed use small buildings that would have retail on the ground floor and then residential above, which is, you know, very typical of buildings south of 23rd Street. Can you actually clarify which class each space would be qualified, and also, is it per building or per individual unit? What is the formula there?
Right. So let's just we'll do two examples. A condo building that has a commercial retail condo at the ground floor. Each of those properties they're each considered individual property lots. So the ground floor commercial condo would be assessed at the commercial rate, the 16 cents. And the individual residential condos would be assessed at the $1 per year. So that's one type. Let's take a co-op building with a commercial grounds. That's one lot, right? It's just one lot. And how it works in that case is that the commercial portion of the lot would be assessed at the commercial rate. So let's just say it's 1,000. Let's say it's a 10,000. I'll just say 10,000 square foot building. I know it's probably too small. And 1,000 square foot commercial. That's commercial, and then the 9,000 of residential is just the $1. Yeah. And the way this is structured is to really maintain the current status here is that, you know, if you're under 200,000 square feet total, and there's only, as I said, there's only these 10 current buildings that fit into this 2,000 plus mixed use category, then you're basically broken out into your residential and commercial breakdowns based on how you're structured as a co-op or a condo. Yeah.
Okay, and currently you don't have any plans in the near or even further future of amending the tax that you levy on residential properties?
We have no intention. Yep.
Okay. I have more questions, Renee, but I don't want to hog the the space. So let me know if I'm allowed.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Leila.
Thank you. A question that is more land use related. So when you're going to, take over, jurisdiction over those extended blocks, it looks likely that the city council would support your action. You would have the ability to sponsor a land use action such as a rezoning. Is it something that has been discussed? Is it something that you are considering?
It I don't, it has not been discussed fully, but especially with the conversations, let's just say, going on right now, it's one that we would certainly be, have studied up on and kind of worked with the community, our stakeholders, of course, which are a wide array of them, whether it's on the property side, the business side, the residential side. I mean, we're in the business of making sure that this neighborhood gets back up on its feet as best as it possibly can. And we're thoroughly excited about where it had come to, where we were and where we were going. But yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, opening that debate. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be, if you're meaning it more in like nuts and bolts, Layla, like if we would be an actual like applicant, no. But of course, in terms of the community, either a private or a city sponsored rezoning, we'd certainly be involved. Yeah.
Let me ask you a more focused question. I believe that some blocks, some blocks on the northern boundary of your of the expanded bid are currently zoned manufacturing, meaning that no residential building, no residential development can happen or conversion can happen as of right. Is it something that you have discussed internally, the specific use in a use change?
We have not discussed it internally at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I have more questions, Renee, if you still allow it. I'm sorry. I know I'm greedy.
No. Absolutely. Ask away.
You mentioned in the presentation that you're planning to work on a public realm work envisioning session. Can you actually elaborate on that? And specifically, do you have any plans for 6th Avenue that is, both in the expanded section, obviously it's not yours yet, but even on 6th Avenue where the bid is already operating, it certainly looks and feels very different from 5th Avenue and Broadway that seem to be, more favored in terms of the bid action. And, I would be interested to hear what kind of services you're planning to provide.
Yeah, you know what? Let me, Kurt, are you there? Do you want to say a couple words on the public realm piece? So I'm not too long-winded here.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Kurt Cavanaugh with the Flatiron Partnership. I'm the Director of Planning and Streetscape and Capital Projects. Lily, you're right. We do have a very different feel over on 6th Avenue in the current bid boundaries, 24th Street and South, than we do up in the expansion area. Part of that is due to the fact that it's Ladies Mile Historic District. We have just kind of different feel and different building stock down there. But going up into the expansion and our visioning for the future, we have not yet begun working on any kind of vision plan yet, other than an RFP that we were in the middle of releasing right until COVID hit. And so we haven't really pushed play on any of that yet. So what we're planning to do is really work with the community on what the future of 6th Avenue, what the future of 5th Avenue, Broadway, what it all looks like. We like the idea of a more pedestrian-focused district. So we'll combine some of that work with what we've already done in the streetscape for, hanging baskets and beautification and such.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add, Kurt's right. I mean, so a lot of, when the bid was formed, the original Flatiron bid was formed, one of the first things they did over the first 2 years was put out a streetscape kind of master plan and vision. And a lot of those things, like Kurt mentioned, whether the kind of palette that you see across the neighborhood have been implemented, the plazas were a vision at that point too. And we think it's the right time with the expansion. And that's what we had kicked off to run parallel with the expansion before COVID hit, was this kind of community visioning opportunity to help steer us in to the work we did in the public realm. And so we're excited to do that, and hopefully 2021 will offer us that opportunity to work with everyone on that.
And one of the things we look forward to with working with the community on the visioning plan and next steps is we don't want to just, copy and paste what we've done in the current bid. We'd like to look at things a little bit differently and not have, the goal is not a set piece that's homogenous throughout, but really it's a different look and feel up in the Nomad section for sure. We want to keep that in mind, and we look forward to those conversations and really just providing the services that we're used to providing, but in a way that's appropriate for both the current and the expansion areas.
Okay, thank you.
Leila, do you have more questions?
I do, but I feel really embarrassed that I have so many questions.
I have a question. I'll throw it in.
I'll shoot in. I think it's my last. I'm going to disclose fully why I'm present but not entitled. I live in a building that is on 20th Street, 20, that is currently not within the bid, but would become if this expansion is approved. A lot of concern that I have heard from my neighbors and in my building and other buildings on our block is that the bid doesn't do much for side streets. What is your response to that comment?
Well, I don't like to hear it. No, I think, look, obviously there's a lot of attention that does get paid on the major corridors just because the sheer number of pedestrian volume. But with that said, I mean, the side streets are part of the true charm, and especially with the retail and the mixed use nature of them. So we absolutely do service the side streets day in and day out when it comes to just, cleanliness and public safety. We try to do a lot with a little. I can also say that, compared to many of our other neighboring bids, we probably have one of the lower assessments and certainly one of the lower assessment rates. So we don't want to, we're not trying to bang, knock you on the head with our presence, but absolutely, I mean, if that's the case, we want to make sure that those streets are as vibrant as possible, and whether it's tree guards and tree pits and banners as a presence, and then making sure that there's opportunity for public realm, whether it's additional greening. That's another thing that's come out of the public realm thinking, extending the park as its like central lung further out into the side streets. Yeah, I know we work closely with a number, particularly of mixed use residential buildings too. Our office, we were on 24th Street between 6th and Broadway for the last 14 years. And certainly worked very closely with our residential associations there. So,
yeah, and one thing I'd like to add with 20th Street in particular is it is in the expansion area right now, but we did work hand in hand with a lot of restaurants along the block between Broadway and Park Avenue South for their very successful outdoor dining setups that have expanded into the roadbed. Worked with them on outreach, on developing that plan for them, maintenance, and working kind of being a liaison between them and the city with DOT. And that is one of the more, I mean, admittedly I'm biased, but one of the most impressive restaurant streets that have come out of this in the last, since July.
Thanks. Nick, I see your hand.
Thanks, Renee. James, on Leila's last comment about side streets, I live on a side street in the current district. And on my street, the bid created tree pits. They plant the flowers in the tree pits. They have hanging baskets. The clean streets, they come and they sweep in front of my building. Is that the same service? Are those the same services that you'll provide to side streets in the expansion district?
Yeah, that's at the minimum. Yep, would be all of it. Yes.
Great, thank you.
I have no more questions. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me see if any other members of the committee have any questions. Use the raise hand function. I'm wondering if we could take off the, could we take off the screen sharing? Because
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I just can't see anyone.
There you go.
I have one question while I'm waiting to make sure there's no more. How are you going to embrace the new membership? Is the board going to expand, or how are you going to get the people that are now joining who will be part of the Flatiron bid to have their voices heard?
Yeah, we certainly are willing and open to both expanding the board. We're currently about 35 board members made up of property owners, businesses, residents, local institutions, community boards, and elected officials. We want to make sure that it's as diverse as possible in terms of uses and people. So there's an opportunity. We absolutely will be extending and looking to either fill vacancies with expansion members or possibly increasing as well, as long as it's not unwieldy. The other opportunities too is we do have a pretty robust committee structure too, which is open to public members regardless of formal affiliation as a board member. We have a social services committee that works with us and our homeless outreach provider. We have a streetscape committee that's focused on these issues around public realm that we've been discussing. We have a marketing committee, marketing and branding, which will be very important with the expansion. And we've recently instituted a retail and hospitality working group committee focused primarily on small businesses and hospitality, obviously with an immediate lens on recovery and resiliency, and but one that we're going to continue regardless of the circumstances. So, and I imagine there'll be a task force or working group added to that as we kind of implement, prepare, and then implement for the launch of services in the initial year or two. Yeah.
Thanks, James. All right, I'm looking at the panelists. Any more questions? Please use the raise hand function. I'm not seeing anything from our panelists. I'm going to move to the attendees for questions. And I see two. Todd Shapiro has a question. Todd. Todd, can you hear us? Okay, we don't have Todd, so I'm going to, Todd, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, so my question, as you all know, I'm a big supporter of the bid, but I'm speaking in my capacity as a small businessman in the district. I'm the owner-operator of New York City Seminar and Conference Center, on 6th Avenue and the 23rd Street, and I've been involved with commerce in the neighborhood for almost 20 years. I guess I have a couple of questions. Getting some sense of this during the meeting is, what kind of feedback are you getting from the other small businessmen in the neighborhood as you attempt this expansion? And, that's because really the sort of things that you're talking about that you bring to the district are city services that unfortunately our city can't even deliver anymore. But from the point of view of small businessmen, the things that you're doing in terms of the internet, social media, and your website to promote the district is so far advanced and so incredibly powerful. I use that in my own business. I just wonder, when I talk to I'm always out talking to restaurants and new businesses and new people in the neighborhood, and they don't know anything about this, right? So I'm just wondering, what your plan is to get the word out about the services that you're adding so that they come to see the benefit of these things.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah. We work very hard to both, to make sure that we're broadcasting the terrific small businesses and businesses that are out in Flatiron Nomad and just the greater community. We lend ourselves as a resource on both the marketing side of things as well as on the technical assistance side as well. We continue every day to try to update folks on why this is beneficial. It's tough with many businesses just to get them. They're underwater, especially right now, to even think about just the public realm maintenance responsibility that we're providing and taking off their minds to try to make sure that their workers and their customers feel good about coming into the neighborhood and shopping here. But yeah, with any new business that comes in here, and this will go for every single business that's in the expansion areas, particularly the ground floor, we reach out to them as soon as we know that that a lease is signed and they're already contemplating setting up shop. So that's going to be an extensive campaign over the coming year to say, not only these are the services that we bring in terms of cleanliness, homeless outreach, and beautification, but also these are the services that we can help provide you with in terms of district marketing, getting your wares out there, and also connecting you with resources, technical assistance, and other businesses to help make you thrive. And it's difficult right now, but that's a role that we play.
Great.
Thank you, James. Do you have another question? It's still raised.
The only other question I have is, as an observer of the business districts, I know the reason I'm asking this question is I know that some of the small businesses have the attitude, what is this going to do for me, right? So I'm just wondering, have you gotten any pushback for the expansion of the bid?
Yeah.
And if so, how are you addressing it?
I mean, what you said earlier, Todd, we've heard a lot too. I guess I didn't, and I guess I mentioned a little bit when I think it was Layla's question. There's an explanation that has to go into saying like what we are, who we are, differentiating ourselves from the city. These are, we're providing a level of service above and beyond what the city on a good day provides, and perhaps much more on a rough day that the city can provide. We work hand in hand with the city's Department of Transportation, Sanitation, Police, Homeless Services, Economic Development, Small Business, you name it, just like this board does. And we need them to perform, and we need them to be resourced so that our services can shine above and beyond. And hopefully in a time of difficulty like now, our services are more visible and helpful, and can at least allow the businesses to focus on what's going to allow them to stay afloat. But it's honestly, we make the argument all the time with businesses as like, this is an assessment, this is an investment in your neighborhood, in the surroundings around you that are going to help make you thrive. It is not a tax that can go off in any direction. It's here, it's invested in this community. That's something that we continue to do. We've been doing it for the past 2 years too. So it's an ongoing effort.
Okay, that answers my question. Good luck, guys, with your expansion.
Thanks,
Thank
Todd.
you. Thanks, James. We have Michael Reef. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
That's one option.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to ask maybe you can clarify the value in charging residences $1 a year relative to the funds received and the administration involved in dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the $1 is something that this bid has been charged with and feels strongly about maintaining. We're first and foremost a business district. We're excited and really fortunate to have the mixed use nature of it and the vibrancy that residents have continued to bring to the area. But first and foremost, it's providing value to our businesses. That's goal and mission number one. And which is why we do feel like it's important that we maintain the $1 individual residential assessments. That's where we are on that. We know that there's spillover benefit, and we've been really, really, really happy and grateful for the outpouring of support that residents in particular have come to us with for the expansion, both the current boundaries as proposed and beyond. I guess it is easier to do that when it's a dollar assessment, but right now that's where we are. That's what we're proposing.
Thanks, James. We have one more attendee question from Victoria Watkins. Victoria.
Thank you. James, thanks for the presentation. My name is Victoria Watkins. I'm a resident in CB5. I live near the proposed district expansion on Madison Avenue near 32nd Street. And my question is, one, I'm trying to understand why they're on the southeast corner of 32nd Street and Madison and southwest corner of 32nd Street and Madison are excluded from the proposed boundary expansion. I would not consider those corners part of Koreatown or the 34th Street Partnership. They're not like tourist districts, and they're not part of Koreatown. In fact, there are two buildings that are excluded on Madison Avenue on the west side going up to the southwest corner. One is a large commercial, a decent sized commercial building, Class A, and another one is like a commercial building that has a furniture store, luxury store, Lazzoni. That's on the southwest side. And then, the southeast side, pardon me. And then on the southwest side, there's a commercial building. So, again, it seems like this boundary should extend to 34th to 32nd Street, southeast and southwest sides to make it inclusive of the community, the neighborhood, for supplemental sanitation and horticulture support. Consistent with what you're doing on Park Avenue, I like that you're extending the boundary all the way up to 33rd Street on the southeast side. That makes sense. But the proposed boundary for Madison, it looks like you have orphan buildings, small businesses, three smaller commercial buildings that are excluded.
Thank you, Victoria. And I know we you sent a letter on this to everyone too, and I appreciate that. Again, the rhyme and the reason behind the map as drawn is that we set a 31st Street north and south boundary, with the one exception of the northeast corner of 32nd and Park Avenue South. There was no intention of cutting out anyone. The lots that it's just basically drawn by property lots. So some of those lots go up, right? They go up to further up the street. Others are cut at the corner. We can't carve out individual businesses. It's all tied to property lots. That's why you see on the west side of Park Avenue South between 31 and 32, it's the whole side of the block because it's one lot. That's why on Madison Avenue, it's half of the block on the east side and 3/4 of the block on the west side. That was the driving force here, knowing that, there's a gap that still exists, but one that we felt might be a step too far in terms of this bid's capacity to do a good job of maintaining and sustaining. But, I hear you loud and clear. We've heard from residents and buildings between 6th Avenue and 7th Avenue, between Park Avenue and Lexington, even 19th Street, asking for inclusion, and we had to draw the line somewhere. Then I know it's not probably the answer you want, but that's where we are right now.
All right, thank you, James. I shared my comments also with Council members Powers and Rivera. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thanks, Victoria. Thank you, James.
Oh, you're muted.
Renee, you're muted.
Muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Just doing really quick sweep to see if there's any more questions.
Made my point, right?
And seeing none, I'm going to turn it to the committee for comments. And just to remind people, we are here, we're voting on the application for the extension of the Flatiron bid expansion under the ULURP process. So comments to that. Any comments by either committee? Bex? Land use? Okay, Clayton.
I will just make a simple comment of support for this because I know that I remember the first meeting we had talking about this was probably 4 years ago when they first came to us in consultation. I know that they have done very broad and considerable work with outreach. I don't love the percentage of support letters that you've gotten. I know it's really hard, and I don't feel great about that, but that's my one concern, and I'd love to hear what other people think about that. But I am in support of this proposal. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Clayton. Let me see. EJ.
Yeah, I'll just say as well, I have not been through one of these bid expansion or bid definition processes myself before, but this proposal seems like it's been in the hopper for a very long time, that it's well considered, that it's being done in consultation with the community, and that the boundaries are not arbitrary or ad hoc. They're well considered for a lot of the rationale that we've heard tonight. And, I simply, don't see any reason to oppose this at this time.
Thank you, EJ. Other comments? I know that the BEX committee has heard this plan many times. Does anyone want to share our thinking on that or comments that they have about the process? I'm seeing Layla.
So once again, I want to preface that I am present but not entitled. I would just like to suggest that maybe the bid can come back to us 6 months after this has been approved, so that we can continue to engage. And I would also like to suggest that 6th Avenue, in every possible aspect of what the bid does, whether it's sanitation, homeless outreach, marketing, or any other aspect, become a priority. I know it is a priority, but maybe a heightened priority, I think, would be valuable. So those are my two suggestions.
Thank you, Layla. James, would you be willing to come back to us in 6 months?
Absolutely. Okay. Whenever you invite me, or if you want me to pop in, I'm more than happy to. Yes, absolutely. I would appreciate that. And we have a lot of work ahead of us, both with this process and then just getting going if we get to that point. So yes, count me in.
Fabulous. Layla, do I see your hand is raised again?
No, I will unraise it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments by the committee? Okay, I'm seeing none. So I'm going to, what I've heard from the committee is that we are generally in support. We've heard that from Bex previously, prior to this presentation. I'm hearing support from many of the committee members. I'm not hearing any other comments. So I'm going to ask for a motion in favor of the expansion of the Flatiron bid under this process.
Second.
And if I could ask that the motion also includes that they would come back to us within 6 months of having been approved by the City Council, and that 6th Avenue be a priority.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's Chuck Miller. So that's an invitation to them to come back. It's not a conditional approval or any other contingency.
My suggestion would be that it would be just a suggestion, and in good spirits, that they would agree to come back to us. It would not be a condition.
Thank you.
Right. So what we have on the table is the approval of this expansion of the Flatiron bid. We've extended an invitation, which the Flatiron bid has accepted, to come back to us in 6 months' time. I had a motion and a second, so we're going to move to the vote. Shall we do land use first, Layla, or Bex?
Sure. Let's do land use. Okay. Dave Achilles.
Yes.
Nick.
Not entitled.
Um, Mike,
Yes.
Tristan,
Yes.
Matt. I don't know if he's still with us. EJ.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Matt is a yes. John,
Yes.
Clayton,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Layla. I am a present but not entitled. Okay, thank you so much, Land Use Committee.
Thank you. We're going to move to Bex, and I just will reiterate, I believe we do have quorum now on both committees. If we do not, it will be ratified by the exec committee, and we will post when that date and when that meeting will happen.
Confirming that we have quorum for the Land Use Committee.
Fabulous. Okay. And I'm going to turn to Bex for voting. Zach?
Yes.
Joseph? Brewer?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Blaga? Blaga?
Yes.
Thank you. Kim?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes. Do we vote twice for each committee?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Then yes.
Lucky you.
And Bex has quorum as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight. Thank you very much to the Flatiron bid for their presentation. And this will now go, because of the timing, this is the timing of why we had this meeting on this date. This will now move to the exec for ratification because our opinion must be submitted to under the ULURP process at January 4th. So with that, I will say good night, everybody. Thank you very much. And we will see the Flatiron bid in 6 months' time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Be safe.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.